A man receives a life sentence. The jury decides whether or not he is to be executed, and the man's fate is in their hands. The room is dim and quiet, and the man is restricted from movement per the leather straps holding him. His punishment is the chair. And Randy, Macho Man Savage, springs from the top rung, slamming his new prey with the chair. The crowd goes wild! Hey everybody, my name is Tucker Klingensmith, and today I'd like to talk to you about comedy. First off, there are lots of different types of comedy. There like dark humor, and there's slapstick, whatever, right? Lots of different types of comedy, lots of different types of jokes, and more importantly, um, varying types of sensitive humor. Um, Today we're going to navigate a little around cancel culture so that things that you say won't be perceived as offensive or hurtful to others. You may know of comedian Kevin Hart from like Jumanji, and he's a stand-up comedian, right? He was set to host the Oscars award ceremony, right? But some people found some of his homophobic tweets back from 2010, and as Kevin Hart changed, his comedy changed with the people. What was still funny, but the problem was that the tweet didn't change while the people did. It no longer reached its intended audience, thus becoming offensive. Um, Kevin Hart ultimately ended up resigning from his position as the sharer of the Oscars awards, which is, it sucks. Um, my own comedy, I like to use what I call surprise comedy, which is why I put in the bit about Randy Savage. Even if you don't know who Randy Savage is or Macho Man, you can still infer that I'm talking about WWE or pro wrestling by the fact that I mentioned off the top rung or hit the guy with a chair. You go, oh, I recognize that. I've seen this before. That makes you a demographic of people who have seen this before, who recognize what I'm talking about. And the audience is who you're talking to. And that's what's very important. You need your joke to hit a large demographic about, for an audience. Um, when I joke with my friends, the audience is my friends. I am telling the joke, and the demographic is whatever we want it to be, right? So if I'm playing video games with friends, I can make a joke about the video game to my friends, the audience, to the demographic, people playing the video game, to my joke, me telling my joke. I also like the stereotype about myself being white. Like, dude, how did you miss that stare? And I'll go, bro, look at me. Look, you see, I lack pigment. And that's not a diss at any other color besides my own. And I'm offending my own race, which self-aware self-aware comedy is also its own form of comedy, right? Um, my friends understand the joke of me not being athletic because I'm white, which is the setup, the demographic, and the audience, right? It's all right there, which is very, very important in telling jokes. If you want to tell your own jokes, I would recommend starting with sarcasm, dad jokes, and wordplay, just because they're fun, little, and easy, and you can get more comfortable as you tell longer jokes. Um, if you want to see how the pros do it, literally just Google or YouTube professional comedians, or like stand up comedy, and you'll see all of these professionals who literally do this this for a living. They tell jokes, and they're successful at it. So I think you should look at them to see what you want your style of comedy to be. However, there's a line, obviously. Is your comedy offensive? If you're not sure, take a look at your logic of the joke. Does it even make sense to you? And then make sure, see what your demographic that you're aiming the joke towards, and make sure that demographic matches with your audience. Because if your demographic and your audience don't make sense, they don't add up, your audience is going to go, I don't understand what he's talking about. I don't get it. And this is a failure in communication. You have what you have to say, you have who it's for, and you have who you're telling it to. Usually, you want to have what you're saying to people for them. That just makes sense. Excuse me. If I ask you, want a break from the ads? Click the banner below for 30 minutes of ad-free music. And there's a little part of you that goes, oh my god, I recognize that from somewhere. Then that was a successful joke. And you're broke and won't pay for Spotify Premium. That whole section was the joke. I don't think you're broke. That's the joke towards the demographic of users who don't pay for Spotify. Lots of people use Spotify, which makes this a larger demographic for an audience. Because Spotify is so popular, it fits a large demographic, which will reach the audience better. The most important part of telling jokes is your audience's reaction. If they get mad and want to fight you, you may have offended them. This part is a little tricky, but if they laugh, you're on the right track. If they laugh, they understand what you're saying, maybe they can relate to it, and whatever you had said, they find comical. I have created a joke success checklist. First, who's your audience? Make sure you know who your audience is. Second, is your joke logical and sensible to a larger audience? Does it make sense? Is it offensive? And if it doesn't make sense to your audience, this is when you can create a story. You bring your story to your audience, and it becomes a setup for your punchline. All right, that's pretty much all. Just note your audience. Who's your audience? Make sure your joke is logical. If it's not, create a story that leads to your punchline. Big 4. Ensure your content is understandable and relatable. This will help create successful jokes. And it's just like having a conversation.